the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
With what happened here.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas is kind of the obvious answer here, right? You know, you look at the past couple years where they've been very dominant in the regular season. Everybody's like, oh man, you know, this actually might be the year for the Cowboys. And then like clockwork, we find out like I was the idiot. I think I came on the show and I was like, yeah, I picked the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl in the preseason. Well, hold on.
I'm right there with you. This is what, like, we miss you, Evan. We love you, Evan. But this is a moment where I'm glad Evan is not here, because he would be rubbing, oh man, he'd be going full Stephen A. Smith here with this Cowboys segment.
And look, like, for like we deserve it. Like it's the same thing every year. And you know, the Packers came out guns blazing, man. Like I think it was like 3rd and 9, and Jay Love's rolling to his right, stops, cuts to his left real quick, and just fadeaway jumpers it to Romeo Doubs over the middle. I think as soon as that play happened, I was like, oh, okay.
He had a couple of those over the middle where he's just making stuff, and guys are just sitting in the soft zone, and they're just finding stuff, and he's just, all right, if that's what y'all want, I'll do it.
There's a few times where the Packers, I think, just ran like levels types of concepts, and Dobbs just kept finding the hole in the middle. Jordan Love had a few of those throws. He had one like on the goal line. I think it was a 2-point conversion, or was it for a touchdown? I can't remember.
It was 4th and 2, and they were going for it up like 40-16.
Skips a rock just plants a seed inside such a small hole. Like, man, he played a phenomenal game. Aaron Jones had a phenomenal game. Defensively, they put the Cowboys in hell. And offensively, Matt LaFleur was in his bag and constantly getting guys wide open in terms of just scheming them open. Jordan Love was making the throws. It was a perfectly coached game for the Packers. And the worry coming into this game was, okay, Joe Barry's defense. Like, they're not very good when it comes to defending the pass, especially on early downs. And the Cowboys just didn't take advantage of it. They were run heavy early on first down, when the Packers were at their worst during the regular season was defending the pass on first down. The Cowboys didn't do anything to take advantage of that. So it was just Green Bay outclassed Dallas, and Dallas kind of got Mike McCarthy'd, where, okay, it feels like eventually he's going to, you know, do his thing in the worst possible ways. And Dak was also not very good. It was just a perfect recipe for disaster for the Cowboys. And for Green Bay, I mean, you would be hard pressed to be able to coach a better game than that, to draw up a better game than that, and to have Jordan Love play a better game than that. It was just a perfect disaster for the Cowboys, and just everything went right for Green Bay.
So do y'all remember, I think it was this offseason or last offseason, Kevin Clark, ESPN, had Kyle Shanahan on his podcast. And Kyle Shanahan talked about how he purposely took the Atlanta Falcons job so he can figure out how to break the Dan Quinn Seattle defenses.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, I got to find it, and I'll send it to you guys. But if you go look up Dan Quinn's record against Shanahan and Shanahan-adjacent coaches, like outside of the division, of course, it's not that great. And I think Matt LaFleur kind of he ran circles around this Cowboys defense, just in terms of dressing things up. My biggest problem with the Cowboys defense is that they're soft. And the reason I say that is because they play six DBs at all times. It's kind of because they have to, because the linebackers have been hurt, but also they chose to do this. They came into the season with 3 linebackers on their roster. This is something they chose to do. And one of those linebackers was DeMarvion Overshawn, who was a 220-pound safety at Texas before moving up in his senior year. When you play a 205-pound linebacker at safety, or a 205-pound safety at linebacker, that shit is cool until you have to defend the run like a linebacker and you're 205 pounds. They got destroyed in the run game. And it was so funny seeing them just dress everything up with motion, because 1, that's how the Bills beat the Cowboys with the run game. And 2, everybody was wide open. You guys touched on it earlier, but they ran these dagger concepts the entire game against Tampa 2. Dan Quinn loves calling Tampa 2 on his third downs because he has enough speed to have the middle runner kind of run that middle hole into Tampa, the Brian Urlacher spot, where you just run up and down the middle of the field and take away all those passes. Dan Quinn has a safety there. The problem is with Dagger, when you have that guy running vertical at that linebacker, he's going to run with him because, it's a 4-3 guy running right at you, and that vacates the dig wide open over the middle of the field. Jordan Love hit Romeo Doubs on that like twice in the first 2 drives of the game. It was over at that point. And I think the more damning thing for the Cowboys was that defense getting obliterated. And I said it as soon as the first drive happened. Green Bay choosing to receive was the moment that this.
I was gonna say this. It was a sneaky part of like, we don't respect you. We want the ball and we're gonna score. It was a very Matt Hasselbeck thing.
It's not only that. It's the Cowboys are built to play with a lead.
Yeah.
Structurally, defensively, they're built to play with the lead because then teams have to pass the ball. You don't have to pass the ball when you're up. And if you stay up, if you get the ball first and you score first, you're up. So you can run the ball a little more. So really, this was a defensive like disaster for Dan Quinn. Nobody looked prepared. Offensively, the weirdest thing was CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott being off out of sync. From the first drive of the game, CeeDee Lamb was kind of moping around, which was really weird because it was the first drive of the game. It's not like this was mid-game and they're having to talk him up. Like this happened like on the first 3 and out. Like, something clearly was off in prep for that. They just
and they never got back in sync. It was never like one that was just.
It was a really when it rains it pours type of performance. I don't think schematically Joe Barry did anything really special, but the players really made the plays. Kenny Clark was phenomenal on Sunday. The cover 1 pick 6 was really cool, and it was more. Not schematically, but it was, we know what Dallas does in this situation. It was so funny that in the timeout before, they were talking about how Dak and CD were out of sync and how it just hasn't looked right. And then the next play is the pick 6 to Darnell Savage, where Dak is forcing the ball to CD because everybody in the building knows that ball's going to CD on a slant on 3rd and like what? It was like 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. Everybody in the building knew that ball was going to CD on a slant, including the Packers, who had their robber guy come right up. Like, it's just...
But which is okay, by the way, because CD has feasted all year long.
CD,
like, you know they're going to CD. That was the whole thing. Is like, they've gotten away with it all year long because CD has been better than everybody that they've thrown at him.
Yeah, it's not like it's a bad idea. CD and Dak have killed the league on slants this year. But when you know, and they have a counter for it, like, when it rains, it pours. You know, that was really the thing for the Cowboys offense. It was a very when it rains, it pours type of day. Like, you couldn't get anything going in the run game. Then the passing game was out of sync. Defense can't stop anybody, and now you're in a 20-0 hole.
And it's like one of those. I think you play that game 100 times. I don't think the Packers blow them out the majority of those times in Dallas. I think it was like you said, where I think it was just a cataclysmic day for Dallas. And starting from behind, we learned they are definitely not about that. They were definitely shook. But even like I'm over here talking myself into it at the end of the first half, where they go for it on 4th down, and they get in a great play call. I think it was Ferguson who ended up catching that right, like out of the backfield, and just completely fools Barry's defense. And they go into the half with some momentum. You're like, okay, you're getting the ball back, 3 scores down. It's a lot, but it's home, and this is a good offense. They could do it. And then it just. Nope, they picked up right where they left off, and they were still out of sync, and it just was not going to be their day.
I think the biggest thing here is how unprepared they looked, and that falls on coaching. That gets you fired. Like, Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn should not be back as Cowboys coaches next year. You cannot continuously. The Cowboys are the only team in NFL history to have 3 straight seasons of 12 wins or more and not make the NFC Championship or not make a championship game. Like that is like that's insane levels of unpreparedness. Like, that gets you fired. You cannot go into a game at home. You've been the best team at home in the league against the youngest team in the NFL and completely just not show up. That is what gets you fired. That is why there's going to be a different guy coaching the Cowboys next year.
We shall see down the line here. Jarrett, buy or sell? Speaking of Mike McCarthy and Mike Tomlin, who we were talking about earlier, buy or sell? Mike Tomlin would be a better gamble for Dallas than Bill Belichick if they end up firing Mike McCarthy. Are you buying or selling that?
Yeah, no, I'd buy that. I think that right now for most teams, like JP is, oh God, I know he's looking at me right now. He's much higher on Bill Belichick than I think the majority of people are right now in terms of like his ability to still be like a top tier head coach. When it comes to the defensive side of the ball, absolutely. Like there was a stretch of time this season when the Patriots like held their opponents to 10 points, 10.6 points, and they lost all of those games, which that's great that you did that defensively, but his incompetence when it came to like carrying out the offense, that worries me. So if you are going to bring on Bill Belichick, you best not let him be the GM. And that better be something that he's willing to be okay with.
That's why you go to Atlanta, where Rich McKay and Arthur Blank are the only two people at the press conference to announce the coaching search in Arthur Smith's
That's the thing.
dismissal.
Like if you're Dallas, like you would have like old ass Jerry Jones and now old ass Bill Belichick, who wouldn't get along, I don't think, in terms of like Bill.
I don't know, Bill or Jerry.
Sure?
Bill Parcells liked.
Go. Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.